Hey everyone, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending where you're dialing in from. I think you've all received an email from me, but my name is Daniel. I'll be one of our co-hosts today, along with Raj and Adam, who will have introduced themselves in a moment. We're just going to give people another few minutes to roll in. But as we're getting started, I would love if everyone could just take a moment in the chat to introduce themselves to one another. I think one of the side benefits of these gatherings is not only the content that you'll cover today, but also to meet and learn from the people who are in the room together, because you're all here to talk about the same thing and learn about the same thing. And so my hope is that on the side, you might have some conversations to help one another out. But I would love if in the chat you could just type in, where you're calling in from, what company you're with. I think that would be great just to get everyone familiar with one another. We have an amazing group here today. So I think we have quorum, letting everyone into this waiting room. So again, as a formal introduction, my name is Daniel. As I said, I'm one of the advisors to the CommerceIQ team here. I spend a lot of time with SoftBank's portfolio companies within the commerce space, and my background is building businesses in I guess retail and brand pretty much for my whole career since I graduated college. Today, we're very privileged to have Adam from Hamilton Beach and Vraj from the CommerceIQ team guiding us on a discussion about AVNs, which is probably exciting for many and stressful for others. We have some people really from the emails I've been getting. I'm really excited about today actually because we have people who have been doing this for years and years and years are looking for some inspiration on what to do different, or maybe some empathy on everyone's facing the same problems. Or on the other end, people have never done this before. It's their first AVN. They just started calling on Amazon or are new to a company, and are looking kind of for the one-on-one of that. So given the range of experiences and issues people are facing, I would love if people use this as an opportunity to ask questions. These sessions really only as good as the questions you guys ask and how engaged you are. So we're going to guide a discussion throughout the day. But if there's anything you particularly want to get answered, I'll incorporate some of the questions that were sent to me over email. Please drop them in the chat, and I'll remind you throughout the session to do that. And where relevant, I'll try to loop that into the discussion. For anyone who's new joining in, as you can see in the chat, please take a moment to introduce yourself, where you're dialing in from, and what company you're with. But we'll get rolling. So maybe to start, we start with you, Adam. If you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll go to you, Vraj, and we'll get started.
Fantastic. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Ziemba. I have nearly 11 years of experience in e-commerce. For the first couple of years of my career, I was heavily involved in retail from the retailer perspective. I was at Wayfair, great experiences. And for the past almost 7 years now, I have been on the Amazon business. For the past several years, I've had the pleasure of leading an amazing team on Amazon, orchestrating several different functions from sales, operations, supply chain, forecast, marketing, analytics, kind of all that rolls into Amazon. So really my role right now is more that of a general manager for the Amazon business at Hamilton Beach. So it's a very robust experience. I look forward to all the questions that you all have. Happy to answer and help and assist in any way that I can.
Awesome. And Vraj, how about yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Vraj. I'm an Associate Director of Customer Success here at CommerceIQ. Previously to CommerceIQ, I was working at Amazon as a vendor manager, supporting the Amazon Canada retail business, specifically for the consumer electronics vertical. My main responsibilities while I was at Amazon was maintaining a P&L across different vendors in the office electronics and office supply space. So I'm very familiar with annual vendor negotiations, which was a critical time when I would negotiate with vendors during those timeframes for Amazon, specifically around different terms and different activities that we had going on. But this is a great conversation. I'm really excited to kind of hear the questions that we're going to be receiving, but also be able to kind of navigate some of the challenges as well. We kind of do this on a day-to-day basis with our clients, but having everyone in one room, I think, is going to be able to drive home the message home a little more clear and deeper. So really excited to see where we take this.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. And again, thanks everyone for continuing the introductions in the chat. And as I said, as we're going, if there's anything that seems unclear, something you want more details on, I really would love if you ask questions. And we have our plan, but we prefer to follow your plan. So give us your questions and thoughts, and we'll get to it. But maybe we can just start. Maybe I'll start with you, Adam, and go to you, Vraj. Lots has been changing with Amazon over the last, past couple of quarters. You can see there's a huge focus on free cash flow and operating cash flow. From some of the data I know the CommerceIQ team has shared, we've been seeing some movements on inventory and Amazon holding on to less inventory. And so maybe we can start a bit high level is as you're going in or in the midst of your AVNs, what are some of Amazon's core incentives that you're paying attention to this year that, are maybe different from past years?
I think this is a great question. If you've worked on Amazon business for a while, you'll know that Amazon is changing and evolving all the time. Kind of the Amazon we talk about today is different from Amazon that was a year ago or Amazon that will be a year from now. The way I like to think about Amazon's priorities is really understanding the statements from Amazon's leadership. One area that you may want to take a look at is the letter to shareholders from Amazon CEO Andy Jassy that was released earlier this year. And he really lays out what his priorities are and priorities for the team. So he does talk about things like profitability, and all of us have seen some pretty dramatic cost-cutting efforts related to reducing labor, reducing to higher push on profitability from vendors, on optimizing the inventory levels at Amazon. And I think, talking to different people, we have seen and heard this time and again how Amazon is really optimizing and reducing the inventory that they're sitting on. I think the other area of interest really is the push for improved customer experience. And for the past several months, we have seen this as well in the search results pages and on product pages. Amazon is trying to change the playing field. They're testing new algorithms. They're rolling out generative AI to see, what makes it easier for consumers to make purchases and make purchasing decisions. This does have implications on vendors. The landscape is changing, so we have to be keeping that in mind as we move forward. And I think, the other thing that's really kind of being pushed from top down on Amazon is regionalization of the fulfillment network. In the past, the fulfillment network was more centralized, but now it will be based kind of on specific regions. So Amazon can really focus on delivering to end consumers within that 1 day time frame. I think, Amazon is seeing great results with really fast delivery. It's 1 day or even same day delivery. So I would expect that Amazon will be pushing more towards, maybe it means, higher confirmation rates, maybe it means just having more inventory. It's really hard to assess right now, but I think, these things are coming. And last but not least, Amazon is very focused on innovation. That is, innovation for end consumers, so the shoppers on Amazon, but also innovation from all the vendors. So I think, being really on top of this as you think about next year and really moving forward, that will be key. And then one thing also to remember, especially for those who are new in negotiations with Amazon overall, is one, I always treat negotiations as a conversation. It should never be confrontational. It should never be, about winning. It's about winning for both sides. Amazon has their priorities. People that you work with, the vendor managers, they have their priorities and goals that they have to meet. So really, it's about finding the common ground between what your business needs are and then what Amazon's needs are. And a lot of times, I think, at least I have found in my experience, that there's a lot of common ground to make both sides very successful in those conversations.
No, that makes total sense. And Vraj, I know you've been doing a lot of work supporting a number of businesses across multiple categories. Is there any particular, theme or sticking point that you've noticed that has been the hardest for brands to come to common ground with Amazon?
I think when they're looking at their calendar, and don't mistake me if I'm wrong, they feel like there's always a new promotional event that Amazon is launching. So as we've seen this year, they've launched Big Deal Days, they've launched T11, right, expanding from where they are with T5. So a lot of what Amazon is doing is to really drive a lot of visibility and traffic, which may be difficult for the vendor to really help out with, just because there is a finite amount of promotional dollars and visibility dollars that they can spend from their marketing budgets. So really figuring out where they want to be able to invest is super critical. And I think Amazon is trying to provide as many opportunities to vendors and brands to promote their products. I know this time around for Black Friday, they will be having a football game running, which is going to be a great slot for a lot of promotional dollars or promotional slots for visibility of products, specifically whenever there are commercials during the game, which is going to be an ability to drive traffic as well. Another thing that'll be interesting is kind of the carry out period from this Turkey 11, Turkey 5 period where Amazon's going to have to deal with inventory or sometimes overload of inventory and how they're going to move through that before the end of the year. So Andy Jassy is really prime on profitability and making sure their pencils are sharpened. So there's going to be a lot of conversation that may be coming back from your vendor manager around how this inventory is going to be moved before the end of the year. So something to keep in mind as you guys are navigating through vendor negotiations, that may be a topic brought up during this year's cycle.
And you touched on something, if you don't mind, we jump around, and I wanted to get to broader data points, but on these tentpole events that are coming up, and Black Friday in itself is Amazon has kind of monopolized it into their own 11-day event. It's a lot of the questions I've been getting around retail media and spend has been like, how does that factor into negotiations? So maybe we can start, a little high level first on the retail media or co-op marketing side, like. What are the points you feel like are being pushed by brands that are the hardest to actually accept or deal with going into this year's negotiations?
Yes, and I can jump in, Adam, if you don't mind. But from Amazon's point of view, while clients have one bucket of marketing dollars, which can be used for advertising or promotions, Amazon views it at two different P&Ls. So they look at it from a retail P&L and an advertising P&L. So whenever you guys are talking about increasing advertising spend or investment, your vendor manager during the negotiation, unfortunately, will not look at that as a contributing factor towards closing the negotiation because that is handled by a different team and a different P&L. What they're truly focused on is their core terms, and within those core terms are MDF, or the Marketing Discretionary Fund, which is there to fund promotional packages like marketing programs during these tentpole events to drive traffic, by buying different types of packages. So you may have heard of a gold package or a silver package or even a platinum package. So those are the areas where your vendor managers are really keen on developing that type of rapport and negotiation as well. But one thing to keep in mind as well is Amazon is really growing their business side of the portfolio. And that's something to keep in mind as well, because not only has the tentpole merchandising expanded beyond just B2C, but Amazon Business is also having their fair share of events as well, where vendor managers maybe bring that to the table as an opportunity where vendors or clients can invest at a smaller scale or smaller amount that may work for both parties, which can be also helpful during a negotiation. Something to keep in mind, as Amazon Business is a growth target for Amazon in general and continuing to drive that for their business.
How on your side, Adam, how have you been navigating this?
I am good, but I try to rectify immediately.
Hold on one second. Let me see if I can
call you first and then
mute everyone.
So no, because
1 second. There we go. Someone is in their own negotiation right now. We're just a live feed.
I think someone was contributing as well, addressing that question, which was great. I think, to tap on Vraj's statements here, I would say, in the end, it's really up to you and your brands and your company, kind of how, and your team, what you want to do and how you want to proceed. I think it's always worth testing different initiatives and seeing really what sticks. You're all in different industries, so different things work for different people. So, I would say, give it a try and see what works for you and what for your brand and what results you see.
And when you're preparing for AVNs, there's so many facets of the business that matter. What are some of the data that you are leveraging that you feel like is giving you the best chance to I guess come to common ground with your vendor managers? Can you walk us through a little bit more about what you find is important?
Sure, I'll start. I think I really like there's this really great guy, Martin Hubel, who developed this great framework for overall negotiations and maybe more specifically negotiations with Amazon, and that's a SCORE framework. So SCORE stands for different things. S stands for studying the metrics and studying the business. So this is really identifying your own initiatives and your prerogatives and objectives and studying Amazon's metrics. And kind of reading what Amazon is really focused on. Kind of we've talked about this already, but profitability. So how is your net PPM performing? How is your inventory levels? Really having the data consolidated, and there's many tools to do that. Obviously, Vendor Central is one. CommerceIQ is another fantastic platform that does that and helps you do that as well. So, really understanding your metrics, how you're growing, what your net PPM is, how your profitability is performing. Those are really good things to keep in your back pocket. So that's S. Then there's C, which is the creating alignment. So when you talk to your vendor manager, really kind of finding the common ground, like what are the objectives of your vendor manager, and trying to kind of come to the same conclusion or come to the same agreement with your vendor manager. The O is on negotiations. So there will be some back and forth between you and your vendor manager. So really kind of like owning the negotiation and driving, being in the leading seat and not being in a more passive seat. I think that's really key. Then there'll be problems. So you want to resolve the problems, which is what R stands for. Maybe there will be some asks that you cannot agree to. So how do you find some convincing numbers or convincing arguments to push through your agenda? And last but not least, E, kind of enhance the conversation, kind of continue talking to your vendor manager, even if you finish up, if you summarize your AVN, kind of continue talking to your vendor manager, see what other opportunities are throughout the year. I think that's very valuable, because you don't want to be just in touch once a year for vendor negotiations. You want to be in touch with your vendor manager. Like maybe there's some new programs that you can be participating in. Maybe there's some marketing packages. Maybe there's some beta tests that you could participate in. So I think having the conversation afterwards is really relevant. So that's kind of the framework that I really like. There's probably like some adjustments to it, and you can flip it and adjust as you want, but I think that's really the key.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And if you don't mind, as a specific example, I got one question that I think we can kind of workshop this framework live, and I'd love both of your thoughts on this. Actually, someone had sent me a note. Basically, to summarize, they're new in the seat for Amazon, and their predecessor had negotiated terms that based on current business environment are just not favorable to the business. And they've made some progress in being able to negotiate new terms, but there is this desire to try to claw back on some previous agreements, and I think that's another question here too. Kyle is saying you'll never get a % of freight damage or marketing accrual back, but in this general, I think the hardest part is you're inheriting a new business, and previous teams, previous environment has resulted in something that's unfavorable. Have you found any ways or any, ways to navigate the conversation to be able to claw back on terms in general, or how to navigate a tough negotiation like that?
That's a great question. I'll say AVN is mostly so Amazon is all about long term. Kind of, I think everybody can agree that Amazon's really thinking long term, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. AVN itself is more about fulfilling your vendor manager's needs and your vendor manager's objectives. So the AVN conversation is more short term, but when you talk about clawing back some of the previously agreed terms, that is probably more challenging. Not impossible, but definitely more challenging. The way I would approach this is probably finding some convincing data to, depending on what it is, whether it's freight or whether it's returns or whether it's something entirely different, really finding the convincing data. And sometimes there might be a temporary hit to the business. Amazon does sometimes impose some punitive actions against vendors who are either delaying the AVNs or not agreeing to the terms, but it's really about what you can offer instead in lieu of those of Amazon reducing or coming back, returning some of these terms that had been previously agreed to.
And Vraj, on this topic of kind of metrics to focus on, maybe not specific to this type of negotiation, but I know you'd written some stuff about net PPM and total margin. And one of the questions we got was around how to navigate that and this kind of all-in investment. And I know you had highlighted this year is a little bit different in terms of what they're actually focusing on. So, what have you seen as core metrics that brands should be paying attention to?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of brands in general look at net PPM as a key profitability metric when you are speaking with Amazon, but I think it's imperative to look at that beyond just a black box. you have to understand that when a vendor manager is negotiating with you as a business owner, they are negotiating for free cash flow wins. Those wins are incremental. So regardless of whether or not your net PPM is improving year over year, your Amazon VM will still come to the table asking for incremental terms because they have an incremental goal to hit every year that's brought down from their leadership. So that's something to keep in mind to level set expectations, to look at stuff beyond net PPM. Amazon's stance in general is that they're the most ubiquitous retailer when it comes to the amount of footprint they service and how quickly they can get the products to the end consumer. So I think it's really helpful to navigate and understand exactly what their incentives are going into an annual vendor negotiation. Again, the retail business for Amazon isn't very profitable. So this is one way they try to generate profitable wins, is through negotiating with vendors every single year, whether it's done in North America or around the world. So when you're dealing with Amazon, I think you should really look at it from a three-figure approach. I think first and foremost, you have to understand kind of how your performance was in that particular year. So if you guys participated in different marketing packages, I think it's more than fair game to ask for how that performance was, what the ROI was generated from those particular events. So you know exactly what you're trying to hit in the next AVN cycle, and understanding where your ad investment's trying to be, or where your co-op investment is going to be in general. Secondly, I think focusing on core terms. So an Amazon vendor manager is looking at their damage allowance, their freight allowance, and what their SVS, like strategic vendor services, or SAS fee is. So basically, when you get additional support to manage your account on a day-to-day basis, what that particular fee is. More times than not, Amazon's going to most likely increase that fee year over year, understanding that they're trying to scale both of your businesses, and there's incremental fees that come along with servicing it is what they're going to bring to the table. So making sure you guys understand where your core terms are at. And then outside of that, I think that's when it gets into a little bit of a kind of whimsical space, I would say, which is other opportunities to land on fair ground with your vendor manager or Amazon in general. So that's through improving supply chain. So either participating in bulk buys and participating in born to run orders, understanding how they can get inventory or allocating inventory to Amazon in a certain way, which Amazon is always for because they want to be the everything store. So working around those three areas, I think, are key and will help you navigate the negotiation and not get caught up too much in the minutia or the weeds of the negotiation, so you have a framework to work with.
We got one follow-up question on this net PPM target. They sent me a DM just saying, how would you frame up the net PPM being down when your actual margin dollars are up? And is there any ways, does that even matter at the end of the day? Or if it does, how do you get a win out of that? And thank you everyone for putting these great questions. We're going to go through all the data, nerding out, and metrics as we go. So please keep the questions going. But let's start with this one first for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So with net PPM in general, is if it is declining year over year, your vendor manager is going to use that as a carrot to open up the negotiation to say, hey, we're not increasing net PPM. This is why we need to increase it. You guys need to participate in XYZ program. However, if your margin is increasing, is that stating like you've increased your ad investment, Daniel? Is that what the margin is coming from, or just in general? I just want to know
Yeah, I think it's a general question, or just actual margin dollars are up for whatever the drivers may be, but your net PPM percentage is down.
Yeah, so I think what's probably going on is there's significant price matching going on with the products that's undercutting the price, which is unfortunately having a negative impact on net PPM. Like Adam was mentioning, Amazon is very focused on profitability and not holding a lot of inventory. So they might be liquidating those products, maybe having those deals on a thing called warehouse deals, which may be significantly discounted products that you guys may or may not be aware of. So something to keep in mind around channel pricing, which may be happening, which may be driving down net PPM.
On your side, Ed, have you seen any ways to navigate something like that?
I think Vraj is right. I think we all know and hear from all sides of Amazon that profitability is a big priority. I'll say definitely make sure that you take a hard look at your ASIN portfolio and the net PPM by ASIN. That's definitely key. So you understand what's driving the declines year over year. Is it one product? Is it two products? Is it multiple products? Is it the entire catalog? Because you'll be able to more easily navigate that conversation as well.
And on this topic of profitability, we're seeing kind of mixed responses if I read the chat. Sam is saying, I've been told discounted bulk buys will not be viewed as an AVN win or an acceptable way to get to profitability targets, only cost reduction. So there's this tension of discounted bulk buys, could help, but then it goes against the profit or the free cash flow inventory targets from, I guess, both of your perspectives and maybe your category specifically. Is this something that is viewed as a positive or a waste of time to negotiate on?
Yeah, so during my time at Amazon, I was managing the office supply space, which is really big for back to school. So during these vendor negotiations, one of the things that we would push internally is try to get as many bulk buys as possible so we can secure inventory, of course, to move inventory away from the largest retailer, which is Walmart, and they capitalize a lot on back to school. So if we were able to get a bulk buy win, meaning we were able to get inventory at a reduced price into our fulfillment centers, that was a very big deal, especially during the COVID surge, where a lot of the inventory had long lead times, allocation was challenged. There was a lot of tense weekly calls with our vendors and clients, but that was one way that we really pushed, either through a bulk buy or either through Born or Run, which were key areas because I think Born or Run has really been, unfortunately, changed in terms of what is allowed nowadays versus what it was allowed a few years ago. Understanding now it's around newer products that's launched in the last 6 months or so. So Born or Run's definitely been moved around, but I know that's a great vertical or great area to really drive Amazon to invest into your guys' inventory specifically.
I also do wonder what the future of the bulk buys is going to be. We historically have seen Amazon placing those larger orders at the discounts. Now, with a focus on profitability and Amazon wanting to be lean, will they continue ordering those larger orders up front, or will they just be ordering, normal, regular reclaim quantities, but just at reduced price? So those are the questions we don't know the answers to. I think as we move to 2024, we'll try to find out the answers, and we'll see the answers. And kind of to tap on what Vraj said, I also think kind of the discounted buys probably depend on the category. Probably each category is different. So again, it's a conversation between you and your vendor manager, and you're trying to make a good case for discounted buys to be looked favorably upon.
Yeah. Moving to a slightly different topic as it relates to marketing. Jamie had a question earlier on, does Amazon Retail get credit for AMS/DSP spend towards their P&L, and does it differ between categories? And we have some more marketing related questions after, but how much does that matter or factor into your negotiations?
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry, I missed it. The first part.
Yeah, so it's over the years, I've heard different answers to this question. Does Amazon Retail get credit for AMS/DSP spend towards their P&L? Does this differ between categories?
Adam, do you want to take that? Because I think there's a
I think, Vraj, you have more experience than I do in this.
The short answer is no. It does not hit their P&L, unfortunately. So whenever you do bring up anything from an ad investment POV, unfortunately, the vendor manager will pull back pretty strongly, just because they don't get those kind of wins or dollars to invest into driving their 1P P&L, specifically on the retail side. But there has been negotiation tactics used in the past from larger consumer electronics brands that are saying, I'm willing to invest this much into Amazon, specifically within advertising, because it's generated an X amount of ROI. So that's where I think I was mentioning earlier, where it's fair game for you to ask specifically around the ROI with these co-op packages, what is it driving for your business? And if Amazon doesn't have a solidified answer for that, I think that's going to open up a lot more questions and answers, which is great for you guys when you're negotiating with Amazon. So making sure Amazon is able to verify what they're trying to negotiate with data is something that can really help you guys when you're negotiating. So really figuring out where to kind of put that spend is really critical.
And I guess more broadly, there's it seems like a very common pain point with all of us of asking about, does Amazon actually share back any data of the results of these marketing events? And everyone's like, nope. So as you consider, let me kind of frame this question a different way. Like, it sounds like most people are running blind with a lot of these events, but how are you going into, or how are you preparing? Clients are preparing, yourself, Adam, to kind of decide like where I'm actually going to put dollars. It's, not really counting towards the hard targets, but it is overall what the, your vendor manager are looking for. Like, are you investing? Are you supporting? But you're kind of running blind in some ways as well. So maybe let's talk a little high level of like, how do you approach negotiations on specific marketing events, supports of those things, and making decisions on those things within your teams.
When we talk about marketing events, what kind of events do we mean here?
In this case, the question was quite broad, but maybe we can focus on kind of the key tentpole events as a starting point, and because I think those are the places where I've observed the largest increases in ad spend, where it's most competitive, and for a lot of businesses, especially I find in like high innovation categories like electronics, like it's those 18 days that drive the entire calendar year of your P&L. So maybe we can talk about those as a starting point.
Yeah, Adam, it's those packages that you can participate in through your marketing discretionary fund. So that's where the co-op is coming from, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I'm looking at the business kind of high level, and I'm trying to kind of customize this based on everybody's needs here, I would take a look at the data. I think the data is going to really help you out. Having good access to good data is really critical. So whether you have it access in-house or you work with companies like CommerceIQ, which aggregate this data for you and you have very easy and quick snapshot of what's going on with your business, I think looking at the data is really critical for you. There may be some opportunities out there which are new that you have not participated in. It's worth trying, but it's a business decision between you and your team, how much you want to invest in specific events as you move forward. So it's all about testing. And we know Amazon is big on testing. Some things work out, some things do not work out. But really having the mindset of let's test things out and let's break things on the way, and maybe some things will stick, some things will not stick. So it's really kind of what is your willingness to take risks, and what is your willingness to allocate some additional budget to those new initiatives?
Yeah, and I think building upon what Adam is saying around testing newer things with Amazon, I think when I was mentioning earlier on Amazon Business, I think that could be a great opportunity to have a conversation, depending upon each kind of vendor's category and how Amazon Business may be impacting that. Maybe that could be an area where they are offering different tentpole events or tentpole merchandising events, most likely at a reduced cost compared to what they would do on the retail side, and just figuring out Amazon is really trying to drive Amazon Business and really trying to drive that P&L specifically. And there's an opportunity there that can maybe mesh for both the client and Amazon around where you guys can agree upon maybe giving additional dollars to driving some Amazon Business versus the retail business, just knowing how quickly it's growing. I know for a lot of vendors that I have been talking with directly, Amazon Business is hitting over triple-digit growth rates. Comparing year over year, it's growing pretty significantly. So figuring out maybe that could be a common ground where you can continue to invest in those tentpole events, but maybe for a different kind of space as well.
That's great. I want to move some other kind of negotiation points, but on one more, I guess, core terms, there's a kind of a big discussion here from Gurjot, who was asking any thoughts on SAS/SVS percentage accrual versus flat fees. And, it sounds like it's highly dependent on your COGS, and there's a whole discussion here, but I would love if both of you could just weigh in on that and how you kind of make decisions between negotiating around that.
Yeah, so from Amazon's perspective, they're always going to lead with the percentage. The reason being is they want to be able to scale how much you will contribute with the business. So the faster you guys grow, the more shipped COGS you guys have, the more dollars Amazon's able to receive. So they're always going to try to drive the percentage home. I would more so focus on a flat fee personally, because I don't think you guys are looking at your next fiscal year thinking about a declining business. So I'd look about a flat fee and see where you guys are positioned. But again, Amazon's kind of SVS, SAS package is probably one of the more lucrative packages that Amazon does offer, of course, of how much they're kind of asking vendors and clients to contribute. And it varies by vendor manager. It doesn't matter how long they've kind of been tenured. It's always kind of one person at the door, another person leaving the door, unfortunately. So figuring out like how well your vendor manager has been in this current cycle and whether or not they're going to be around for the next year, I think is something that is fair to talk about when you're negotiating this particular contract, because it is a lot of dollars that are going to be going to that particular side of the business.
I concur with Vraj. I think he summarized it pretty well.
Awesome. Well, please keep the questions going, and also please keep answering each other's questions in the chat. I just love how everyone's helping each other out. So please continue that. I wanted to jump to this. We have some kind of core negotiation leverage points that I think are coming up that are worth discussion. And one of them is this idea, let me find the question around 3P or hybrid. And so the question is broadly, has anyone had success moving to either a hybrid or 3P account if you cannot agree to new terms during the AVN? And there's some conversation around how Amazon can block you, and there's ways to go around that. But maybe we can talk more broadly of how viable or effective is the threat of moving to hybrid or 3P, and in kind of getting what you need in a negotiation.
That's $1 million question, I think. Everybody would love to know the answers to this. I think many brands are brand gated and they cannot do business 3P. So if you're 1P, you probably cannot do business 3P at all. How these conversations happen, I would love to pick anyone's brain here who may have more experience in this. I know Amazon's, based on the conversations, it looks like Amazon's pretty bullish. If you're 1P, there's no way you can be doing business 3P.
Yeah. How about you, Vraj? Have you seen anyone navigate this in any effective way?
I think it's difficult. The reason being because when you're negotiating with vendor managers every year, they're really accounting for you guys to generate free cash flow for the business. To position 3P, I think could be a conversation starter. I don't think there's anything foul about asking or even questioning around kind of what that can drive for the business. At CommerceIQ, there are a few clients under my portfolio that have a hybrid model at this point in time, which they do a little bit of 3P business and 1P business as well. They do negotiate on the 1P side when it comes to the negotiations, but it's for a smaller portfolio than a total portfolio. So I think it's something that I'm more than happy to hear if anyone's been successful in negotiating in the past with Amazon around that. I don't have any personal kind of stories around that to contribute right now, but I'm happy to hear if anyone does.
Moving to a different topic around geographies, there's a question here for you specifically. Let me find it. So the specific question from Bri was, how does Amazon view the Canadian market versus the US market when it comes to AVN and overall day-to-day profitability? And broadly, I know there's some people listening in from Europe. I know one of the key support that Amazon's always going to push for in the European market, it's very fragmented. So they're going to launch into, let's say, Poland or expand into Poland. They're going to ask you for support. But you, as the brand owner, that market may not be that important to you. So it's this kind of broad decision of, do I enter? Do I not? Is it worth it for me? Is it not? And so maybe to the best of your knowledge, Raj can speak to a little bit of how do you view geographies and performance in geographies and how it affects your overall negotiations.
Yeah, so all of that is proportionate when Amazon is outlining any negotiation with a client or vendor. So the Amazon market is a lot more smaller and nascent than the US market, of course. Amazon's goal is to be 10% of where the US market is today, and they're still striving for that specifically. But in terms of what they're kind of outlining here, I think a major thing when we're talking about the Canada business is how they're sourcing the products. So there's two ways in Canada that they're able to receive this product specifically. It's either through domestic sourcing, meaning they're able to get it domestically on kind of where it's coming from specifically, or through the North American Fulfillment Network known as NAFN, meaning they're procuring the products through the US, specifically the US fulfillment centers, and then having Amazon deliver that inventory from the US to the Canadian FCs and have those shipped to the end consumer, of course. So there's different ways to navigate through that. At my time at Amazon, a lot of the things that we were trying to push internally was to increase that domestic sourcing if it made sense from a pricing POV, meaning if it was as profitable to source domestically. That's something the Canada business would like to see. The reason being is because those dollars will hit the Canadian P&L and not the US P&L if it's sourced domestically. So those are certain areas where vendor managers may be coming to the table and asking, these are some of your guys' top SKUs. Is there any way that we can flip this from US sourcing to Canadian sourcing? Because that would be helpful to my P&L and how we can negotiate through AVN as well. So something to keep in mind there.
Another question, kind of jumping topics to, I think, Gabriel. Gabriel had asked, has anyone brought a potential private brand into an AVN and seen positive impact? Is this even negotiable, assuming your account is in perfect condition? And then another follow-up question around direct import and how that's kind of played in. Would love, Adam or Vraj, if you have thoughts on either of those questions.
I don't know much about the private label, so I'll defer to Vraj. But I think, when we talk about the fulfillment network and profitability for Amazon, there are ways to really optimize the supply chain network with Amazon. So whether it is participation in the vendor flex program, where Amazon fills directly from your warehouse and your distribution center and to the end consumers directly, whether it's direct import, whether it's direct fulfillment, all of these things do help out Amazon, and they improve Amazon's profitability. So these absolutely can be some of the conversations you have with your vendor manager.
Someone actually called out specifically vendor flex as something they were interested in learning more. Have you, I guess, why do you feel like that's become more important to them? How is it benefiting Amazon more this year than in past years in terms of participation in that?
Well, when you think about it, the concept of vendor flex is Amazon does not really sit on an inventory, so it just ships from your warehouse. They have dedicated space in your warehouse, in your distribution center, where you just transfer the product from your area of the warehouse to kind of the designated gated area of your warehouse, and Amazon ships to end consumers from there. So when you think about it, Amazon is not sitting on any product. So that's improved profitability, better cash flow, and it could also be a faster delivery, so a better consumer experience. In some instances, Amazon does provide labor, so they have to incur that cost. But in some areas, depending on where your warehouse is or your warehouses are, you may have to incur that cost. So for Amazon, that's even an added benefit, more of an added benefit for profitability.
I'm thinking on the supply chain topic for now, Vraj, what are you seeing in terms of importance of participation? What, I guess, sub parts of this fulfillment network participation do you find is most valuable to participate in or focus on?
Yeah, so I think before even kind of considering optimizing your supply chain, I think something that you can bring to the table, and I think a lot of vendors and clients do this, is some of the outstanding shortages or chargebacks you guys may have going into the end of the year, and trying to dealing with that through an open settlement discussion with Amazon. I personally suggest kind of getting ahead of the ball there before the negotiation even kicks off. The reason being is if you're able to submit that open settlement template around outstanding shortages or chargebacks and kick off the discussion and do that a little earlier, I recommend maybe biannually with your vendor manager. It's already on their radar, and it kind of gives you a little bit more leverage when you're going into this negotiation cycle. So what you can do with Amazon is say, if you're able to wipe off a certain percentage of these outstanding shortages or chargebacks, I'm more than happy to test with one of your supply chain efficiency projects that you guys are rolling out, right? So that's a win-win, both from a testing perspective, but able to kind of clear some of the backlog that I know everyone is probably dealing with as the year is coming to a close.
Mm-hmm. I'll add on to what Vraj was saying. I think it's imperative. We hear it kind of from everywhere. I hear it, I talk to many people in different industries across different segments. Shortages is really a big thing that impacts pretty much every vendor, every manufacturer that Amazon works with. I think pushing to get the resolution there is really critical, because it does impact our own businesses. Everybody's business here is impacted. So pushing Amazon to get to the finish line with the permanent resolution is really a key.
Yeah. And I mean, inventory and availability goes back to the earlier discussion on like marketing spend and availability and your overall ASIN strategy. I guess, how have you found, let me phrase this question correctly, I guess, have you found kind of creative ways to merge those two sides of the house to make sure that, one side you're being mindful of, experimenting with Amazon's new fulfillment projects, but at the same time making sure that running into tentpole events, Black Friday, the holidays, you're not all of a sudden stuck with out of stocks that you're going to kill your position, kill your share of voice. And I'm sure on the Amazon side that's not as much of a consideration as it is for you guys, because you're in the middle of both of those things. So maybe talk to me a bit more about this tension between marketing spend, investment, promotion, and inventory and cash flow management, and how you've been approaching that and going into your negotiations.
Vraj, do you want to take it on?
Yeah, I think around all of that, which is fantastic to talk about. I think also around lost buy box and whether or not your product is winning, that is critical as well. And I think that's something to bring up around presenting Amazon with more data, which is around if I want to invest in all of these different projects, if I want to fund all of these different SKUs, if I want to participate in all these different projects that you guys have, how am I going to be in a position to feel supported and confident around the buy box specifically, right? So there's different areas and different businesses within Amazon that are gated. Those are more the premium vendors that you're kind of working with, and they kind of have authorized 3P sellers. But I think it's a fair conversation to bring up during this negotiation cycle around if you are encountering a very high loss buy box rate and you guys are it's very difficult from a brand protection point of view. I think having that broader discussion with Amazon, I think is fair game and something that you should definitely bring up if you're thinking about agreeing to any incremental packages with Amazon.
And I'll just say, from your perspective, I think the big thing is prioritize. Prioritize, make sure that you're walking into 2024 knowing what your objectives are, how you want to allocate your budget, what your budget is for testing new things. There's gazillion things that we all can be doing on Amazon. So you have to decide what is really going to move the needle for me. How am I going to win? What is going to be driving some potential growth for me and profitability for me next year.
Great. As we're coming to a close, if anyone has any other questions, please drop it in. We're going to go maybe for another five to 10 minutes or so to make sure we finish on time. I'd love to talk high level on some creative strategies or kind of outcomes. And what inspired me to ask this question is Ryan Close here had kind of, I'll read it out and use this to frame the question. He said, I had vendors that successfully would offer a discounted, a long lead manual buy during AVN as a negotiation lever to drive increased free cash flow. The really sharp ones would put a clock on that offer to reduce the discount percentage if Amazon dragged their feet on closing negotiations. And so, again, I know you can't speak to specific clients or your own business, but maybe Vraj, I can start with you. And then if there's anything else you'd like to add, Adam, please hop in. Have you found any creative structuring of terms negotiations like that you found effective to drive some favorable outcomes for the brands you work with, Vraj?
Yeah, so one of the clients that I was negotiating with at my time at Amazon approached SVS or SAS as a tiered approach, meaning we are willing to kind of sign this contract not only for this year, but for next year as well. So kind of a 2-year deal when it came to SVS and SAS, but they truly tiered it based on performance around a lot of different clauses that Amazon was kind of bringing to the table on performance. So they're able to really get buy-in from the vendor manager because although it is a 2-year deal, that's a 1-year win for the vendor manager. So you have to think about whenever they're trying to hit their goals, that's going to look a lot more favorable because it's a 2-year deal in theory. Is that vendor manager going to be around that second year? We don't know. But in terms of what they're going to bring back to their leadership team is saying, I was able to get a 2-year deal. However, the way you tier it from a pricing kind of POV can be similar, even less. But you can say, you know what, I'm willing to move forward with a 2-year kind of SVS deal, understanding this is kind of how it's going to be tiered. So that was one of the more creative things that I saw. And that's one of the things that I was able to actually align with that particular client.
And again, not going into any specifics, Adam, but I'd just love to know, are there any, and we kind of danced around the topics already, so we could be repeating ourselves. Is there any core, I guess, leverage points that you're tuned into, given this focus on free cash flow and profitability that, if you summarize everything, like what are the 1 or 2 things that you feel like are worth spending the most time on as a brand owner?
I think that profitability is a really key thing. And profitability as the vendor manager measures it. Amazon, as we all know, has different metrics for profitability, whether it's CP, whether it's net PPM. Vendor managers are really focused on that PPM. So the priority is probably keeping your net PPM at least flat, if not growing year over year. Those will be huge things for you to be successful in those conversations. Great.
We got three rapid fire questions we'll go through, and then we'll close off. On SVS, Christy's asking here, in terms of SVS, we struggled with the quality in the program. Has anyone negotiated that in a way to ensure it is truly a value add program?
I think that's a difficult kind of pitch to Amazon because unfortunately, from a value add perspective, they don't know who's going to be in that seat. Of course, they have offloaded a lot of talent when it comes to the vendor management space. and kind of offshored a lot of that talent. So most likely you're dealing with someone that's probably not in your time zone or even in your country. So to have that baked into the negotiation, I think it comes down to your relationship with Amazon, and how tight-knit you are with their manager and their leadership team. So I think it's something fair to bring to the table, but I think it has to come from a place of rapport and genuineness that Amazon is able to kind of act upon it. But I think it's going to be in general difficult to move forward with as well.
Maybe a question for you, Adam. This is from James. He's asking, with so many third-party sellers eroding price on Amazon and causing profitability crap problems for vendors, how have you navigated this in your AVNs? And going to our earlier topic around data, is there any proof or data you bring to the table to build that case?
3P. 3P is a very, very broad topic. We could probably spend another hour talking about 3P and losing the buy box. There's really two ways that I encourage everybody to approach the less buy box problem. One is the short-term problem, one is the long-term problem. The long-term problem is if you're having some 3P sellers undercutting your price, it means that you may have some problems with distribution, or the product is getting somewhere out there to people's hands and then resell them at Amazon. So that's a problem, long-term problem that every business needs to kind of investigate and see what's going on. There's different problems for different businesses. I think that's one area for a long-term solution. For a short-term solution, I think it's a good conversation to be had with a vendor manager to see why they would be matching a random 3P seller on Amazon on your products. If this is somebody that doesn't have any authority, or somebody who is not selling your product legitimately, why would Amazon be matching that product? So Amazon has their own pricing strategy. They can do whatever they do with their pricing. You cannot really control that.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I want to be mindful of time, and so maybe I can just kind of close on again a high level topic. We've talked a lot about profitability. We've talked about the focus on free cash flow wins, as that being a core driver in AVNs, retail media, and that investment indirectly matters, but directly is not hitting the P&L of brands. You have to be mindful of that, and the participation in these experimental programs. You have to kind of make choiceful decisions on, will it actually help you meet your metrics or not, and is that worth the swirl or the restructuring of your business to do that well. Maybe as we think about going into 2024, if you have any predictions or thoughts, like what do you think Amazon will look like going into next year? Will this trend continue? Is there some bigger strategic initiatives that you're paying attention to that may have a larger impact than we anticipate? I'd love your predictions. Maybe we'll start with you, Vraj, and then go to you, Adam.
Yeah, so I think in a long term, but I think Amazon is really going to try to have the Walmart model of an everyday low price, meaning there will probably be a lot more promotional events in 2024 to what they've been doing the past few years. So I know they've launched big deal days, they've launched Turkey 11. I think they're going to continue to have these makeshift marquee periods throughout the year to generate a lot more traffic other than just Q4. I think what they're realizing is Q4 is really available to a lot of different retailers, and it's for a lot of different audiences. So I think they're going to pick and choose other quarters to drive a lot more traffic that may be surprising to a lot of clients and vendors that they may not be thinking of as peak. But since everyone's businesses are so different, maybe those quarters may align with their strategy in general and how Amazon operates. So something to keep in mind for 24 is kind of where Amazon is going to be driving traffic and how promotional they're going to be from a marketing point of view.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen?
I will also expect a lot more automation and AI playing a key role. Just reading some of the announcements from Amazon, they're working on kind of changing search completely and making more custom recommendations for shoppers with the generative AI, or kind of like GPT style chat within Amazon. So we do expect there will be some pretty significant changes in kind of the shopping experience on Amazon as well.
Yeah, no, I think the same thing. It's pretty wild how fast these innovations are moving. And I was talking to someone else of, I think it's dawned on everyone the impact this will have when it's truly realized, of how it'll change search, how it'll change how you invest in search, how it'll change how you invest in your PDPs. And you're no longer going to optimize for keywords, you're optimizing for conversations and themes. And that's, well beyond even our scope of understanding of what that'll look like. So I totally agree with both of you there. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for your questions and participation. I love that you all have been helping each other out, and that's part of the reason why we host these, is not only to learn from the kind of people speaking, but all of you are dealing with this in different ways. And so I'm just really thankful and appreciative of the community helping each other out. This is a series that we do somewhat ad hoc, but will continue throughout the year. Where there's more thought leadership focus. We've done some sessions with leaders from Walmart and Instacart and Amazon, and something more tactical like today of, how do you actually navigate an AVN? So Adam, thank you for your time and sharing some of your thoughts and experience, as well as Vraj, thank you for sharing your time with us as well. As Shubham said, we'll do a follow-up with maybe a summary of this conversation, some of the Q&A that happened in the chat, because there's a lot of good stuff there. And we hope you tune in to another one soon. I know Thanksgiving is coming up for a lot of us, so I'm wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving, though I know it's T5, so probably everyone's working and preoccupied with that. So best of luck over the next 4 or 5 days. I hope you get a chance to please rest and relax a little bit afterwards. But thank you all, and hope to have you at another session soon.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck. I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.